It was a complete failure by the entire team. A complete failure from the coaching staff to the players themselves. It was a bad showing, and it makes me wonder, what the hell are the Panthers doing here with Frank Reich? I hope he kept the receipt, by the way. Did David Tepper keep the receipt on the $1 billion all-star coaching staff?
So Lauren and Dimitri ask each week, was Bryce Young too short? I think we can keep asking until we get the answer. What is the Panthers' identity under Frank Reich?
Don't know.
37 points, all of the penalty, the self-inflicted wounds. Something tells me, though, that Tepper was probably happy that they didn't win this game with Andy Dalton throwing for 350 yards.
Oh,
because you don't want that situation.
It's fun. I'm with you on this. I actually jotted this down. I'm glad that the Panthers lost. I'm glad that Andy Dalton had to throw it 58 freaking times. And it gave us this quote from Frank Reich after the game.
Yeah, I mean, you don't come into Seattle and throw it 58 times and win very many games. So that was not the formula that we wanted. The run game was non-existent, and so we got to continue to work on that. I did think that Andy handled the pass game pretty well. I think he handled the pass game pretty well, made a lot of good throws. We made some plays in the pass game. I thought given 58 attempts and here, there were times the protection broke down, but it wasn't horrible. It was, I have to look at the tape, but, in many ways, I thought Andy was pretty solid. I thought Andy did a lot of good things today.
There's 2 times where coaches on game day make their money.
Mm-hmm.
First quarter, opening script, right? The third quarter, halftime adjustments, that's also coaching. It's 13-12 at the half for all of their problems.
Yeah.
They're up.
Yeah.
Third quarter, 10-0 Seattle. This is paint by numbers stuff here, and you would expect more out of a 62-year-old coach who's been in the league for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the frustration if I'm the Panthers, if I'm Tepper. You don't know who you are. You don't have an identity. You do not have a clear identity of who you are. You did make some nice moves. I thought the premise of those moves was correct. But, I do think Miles Sanders was supposed to be something that he's quite frankly not.
He's not. So, but their offensive line has actually gotten worse.
And that's part of it. And there's injuries there. There are injuries.
But there's injuries everywhere.
I get that.
It's funny. Like Seattle fans would tell you, oh, you want to talk about injuries? We've been dealing with some stuff too. I mean, every football team deals with it. How do you work past that? We've seen an offensive line that looked like it was one of the promising units for the Carolina Panthers, and one of the reasons why you could go and get Bryce Young and develop that
because of the identity last year. It was clear. It was defined.
Yes,
we're going to run the football. We're going to play defense.
And somewhere between then and now, the offensive line has regressed in ways that, okay, I get it. Maybe there's some growing pains with Ike Ekwonu. He's gotten worse.
He's struggling.
He is really going through it right now. Again, I put that on coaching. So if you don't know what you're going to be, I'd like to know what Frank Reich sold to David Tepper. I would like to know what David Tepper thought he was getting when he went with all of these offensive gurus to put together this $1 billion staff that everybody was excited about. It's great that you win headlines. It's great that you were the talk of the town heading into the draft because you had the number 1 pick. And what were they going to do, even though it seemed to be a foregone conclusion? But all that's fluff, man. That's all the off-season things that I want to be talked about. I want to be the center of attention. Ultimately, the biggest difference between David Tepper and Tom Dundon, the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes, is that people will talk about you when you win. People will talk about you when you have a compelling storyline that is a result of what you're seeing out of games. And right now, what's wild about the Panthers is that they have the number 1 pick. He did not play this weekend. And they're not even discussing whether that's a bust or not yet. Like what's going on in Carolina. They're not even the most exciting train wreck right now in the NFL. So the problem that the Panthers have is that nobody gives a shit about them. Not a soul cares about the Panthers. And 3 weeks into the season, after all the goodwill and all the nostalgia plays that they used in the summertime to get people hyped up again, it's the same stuff with a different staff. It's the same stuff with supposedly, even I said this, what I thought were the adults in the room. I'd like to know what this coaching staff is doing that's different than what we saw to Matt Rule and got roasted week in, week out. So that's This business
Well,
about
I would assume that Frank Reich is treating them like adults, which Matt Rule struggled with.
There's that. I get that part, but come on, you're struggling with noise. It's suddenly playing in Seattle. It was a surprise that they were loud.
The number of penalties was totally inexcusable, pathetic. We talked in there. I would just say this as a general statement. First of all, what we said in there was, and I mean every ounce of it, I have a very strong belief in our team and our players. I have a very strong belief in our coaches. And I know we can be a good football team if we don't beat ourselves. That being said, what we did, the number of penalties that we had on offense was pathetic. And, that starts with me as an offensive coach. That starts with our offensive coaches, getting our players ready. And that starts with our players. That's unacceptable. I mean, it's like we never played in the noise before. We knew it was coming. We practiced all week. With noise. I mean, Wednesday it was so loud out there you couldn't even think.
Well, I guess it didn't really work. That was Frank Reich talking about the penalties and the noise and everything else that was sneaking up on you.